We have proof that North Carolina wants out of the ACC. Will they join the Big Ten next? Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button if you don't mind while you're checking us out here today. And we got some proof, what we already suspected, that North Carolina wants out of the ACC like a lot of other schools do. Hey, will Matt Painter ever leave Purdue to go to Indiana and coach there? Crazy, right? More Nebraska reaction to dropping Tennessee. And we'll have our Tuesday tweets. It's all right here. But first, count North Carolina as a school that desperately wants to leave the ACC. Just like Florida State, just like Clemson. Florida State and Clemson have made a lot of noise that they're embroiled in these lawsuits to try and leave the ACC, or at the least lower their 9-figure exit fee so they can jump to a more lucrative conference like the Big Ten or the SEC. We should note that the ACC is currently in negotiations with both schools, Clemson and Florida State, possibly giving them bigger slices of the TV media pie than they give other schools in order to keep them around. That's all going on behind the scenes right now. All along, while we've been talking about this here on this podcast and Clemson and Florida State and lawsuits and all that, North Carolina, we've even mentioned this, seems like North Carolina is just kind of sitting in the weeds, kind of quiet, just kind of watching how everything plays out and letting Clemson and Florida State handle all these expensive lawsuits. And then whatever happens, happens. They'll make their decisions based on that at another time. But just how quietly have they been waiting in the weeds there? According to the News and Observer, North Carolina hired a law firm to explore the possibility of leaving the ACC. Now, according to this report, it was based on some findings from The Athletic that the school in Chapel Hill quietly funneled $600,000 for legal fees related to a plan called Carolina Blue. It's an exploration project that looks at the school's possible, and I say probable, involvement in conference realignment amid the financial inequity of the ACC compared to the SEC and the Big Ten. I boil that down. North Carolina knows it's getting ripped off, losing hundreds of millions of dollars by remaining in the ACC in their underpaying TV rights deal until the year 2036, by the way. And what would that cost revenue ratio look like if the school bolted for a better conference at some point along the line? That's what this is all about. This is why they're funneling legal fees to look into this. $600,000 worth. But that's not the crazy part of the story. What makes this story even more interesting to me is the fact that North Carolina has been quiet about this, about all these legal expenditures, even vague about it in its billing practices on this matter. And now they're getting sued about it. Somebody wants to find out what all this vague stuff is on the bottom line and what's going on. That would be local attorney David McKenzie. He is suing North Carolina over its billing records and its refusal to release records. North Carolina is a public state school. That means records and meetings should be open to the public. McKenzie says that the school has been misleading and obscure in this lawsuit that he filed just last Wednesday. By the way, this is not McKenzie's first go-around legally with North Carolina. He filed a previous lawsuit against North Carolina after the school's board of trustees held a closed-door meeting to discuss athletic matters once upon a time, and he accused the public school of breaking state law about open meetings. Okay. So there's no doubt that North Carolina is considering leaving the ACC for maybe the Big Ten or the SEC. Common sense would tell you, though, that every school in the country, particularly every school in the ACC, has had expansion and realignment discussions. You do in your due diligence. You'd be negligent if you didn't, if you were in charge of an athletic department. You got to always be saying, what if and when? What do we do if this happens? What do we do if that happens? Perfectly normal. You need to have these conversations. But a lot of this needs to be public record. That's what the lawsuit is about. So the News Observer has also obtained messages from the athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, and their messages to a former chancellor is no longer there, discussing possible conference changes and whether they leave or if they remain. And if so, how will the ACC look in the future? What kind of conference are we talking about? Or is it a brand new conference altogether? These are things that were in these messages that, again, should have always been public record. They are public record now. Again, nothing wrong here with these conversations between a chancellor and athletic director. Perfectly normal business. But they should have been having these discussions in the open, publicly. But my question is, so why were they being so secretive about it? I mean, I just told you, we've talked about many times on this podcast how Florida State and Clemson, they've been shouting from the top of their lungs that they're anti-ACC and this low-paying TV media deal, and what can we do to get out of here? Been very public about, very vocal about it, but not North Carolina. Why the hush-hush approach? I don't really have a good answer for that. Maybe this is North Carolina's way of kind of riding the conference fence for a while, keeping both feet, one foot on each side, and, laying low until a certain direction is made obvious for them to go. Maybe this is them keeping all their options open for as long as possible. But one thing is clear, and that is North Carolina sees that the grass is greener on the other side of that fence. There's no question about it. Big Ten and SEC schools earn way more money than ACC schools. And they're also looking around, hey, if Florida State and Clemson are going to get a bigger piece of the pie, just a piece of it, what about us? We're not some rinky-dink school here, North Carolina. We're North Carolina. So now you everydayers here on Lockdown Big Ten, you know that this podcast has repeatedly said two things about expansion and realignment. And if you're new, welcome aboard, by the way. But here's our thought process on all this. The ACC is going to blow up sooner or later under the weight of this horrible media rights deal. And schools are going to seek cover in the more lucrative Big Ten and SEC. And then some teams from the Big 12 will panic and follow and jump ship as well. Then the Big Ten and the SEC, they're going to grab some of these teams, not all of them, but some of them, and they're going to form two super conferences, maybe 20 to 24 teams each, and they're going to operate like the NFL with an AFC and NFC, a Big Ten and an SEC, and they're going to have their own playoff and their own championship. We are going down that road. Whether it happens next year, 5 years from now, and 2036, whatever. It's going to happen. This is the path we're going down. That's our opinion here on this podcast on Lockdown Big Ten. So all these other schools are going to be like, wow, the writing's on the wall. We got to either be in this super conference alignment with the Big Ten and the SEC, or we're going to get left out. If you're in it, you're going to thrive. If you're left out, you're going to die. And you're going to be part of some lower form of college football moving forward. The other thing that we always mention here is that North Carolina, maybe other than Notre Dame, going to be the most coveted school of this eventual realignment, the Big Ten and the SEC. We, in fact, predict that North Carolina will be the one school. There'll actually be a bidding war. Some schools were better fits for the Big Ten. Some are better fits for the SEC. North Carolina, both those conferences would love to have North Carolina. The Big Ten would love to have the Tar Heels in the Big Ten. The SEC would love to have the Tar Heels in the SEC. So I think there'll be a bidding war when it comes down to it. Because the Tar Heels, they check all the boxes. It's the right size school. Football has a higher profile. Look, Mac Brown brought it up to a certain level. Bill Belichick possibly can bring it up to a whole nother level. Basketball is a name brand school. I mean, can you imagine an Indiana, North Carolina game 2 times a year? It'd be great. It'd be fantastic. Academics are good. And neither the Big Ten or the SEC has its footprint in North Carolina right now. So both would love to do so. So it appears that North Carolina would be a willing partner for either conference, but not the ACC anymore. And now we have a little bit of proof behind the scenes that that's exactly what they're thinking as well. We'd love your thoughts and comments on this. Hit us up if you're checking us out on YouTube. We'd love your comments on that. It is one of our favorite topics to discuss. Would love to have North Carolina in the Big Ten with some sort of expansion and realignment plan in the future. Hey, if you're new to us, check out, hit the subscribe button down below if you don't mind. It's free. And you can follow this Locked On Big Ten podcast wherever you get your podcast. That way, you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And we always ask if you don't mind, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten as well. Thank you very much. And don't forget, we got a website, talkbig10.com, along with Twitter at talkbig10. But the website, we put all of our podcasts there. If you just joining us today, go check out what we did yesterday or the day before. Get caught up on a second listen. We always appreciate that. It's talkbig10.com. We also have links there with your favorite schools if you want to get some merchandise, some shirts, t-shirts, hats, pennants, all that kind of stuff right there. Talkbig10.com. All right. There are some other things I would like to discuss with you today and some other interesting topics going around. First of all, do you think Matt Painter at Purdue would ever leave the Boilermakers to go take the Indiana job, which is opening up? Whoa. Crazy, right? Plus, a former Huskers football player has chimed in, has something interesting to say about the Huskers dropping Tennessee from the schedule lately in that home and home. And we'll have our Tuesday tweets. All that's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Let me tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks, March is here, basketball, we're going to be all over it. There's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less with player stats and players. You can group 2 players, 3 players, 4 players. You can group them all together. So you're going to do more than this stat, less than that stat, whether it be total points, rebounds, a bunch of options, limitless, really. And you can win and win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast and easy, and it keeps every game exciting. You can build your lineups. For example, you grab a player like Jason Tatum and say more than 29 points, and Anthony Davis less than 12 rebounds. Put them all together and watch your winnings grow. PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where you can get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right. Want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers. You guys make this thing go. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts and your favorite school merchandise is there for your convenience if you want to get that. All right. Some interesting words from Purdue basketball coach Matt Painter about the upcoming Indiana head coaching job opening as Mike Woodson's about to step down. I'll take care of that in a minute. But on yesterday's Locked On Big Ten, we talked about Nebraska football. And after it canceled its spring game, it also canceled its home and home with Tennessee. A lot of fans were upset about it. A lot of fans on both sides, by the way, Nebraska and Tennessee. But former Huskers player and former NFL player Will Compton tweeted out a response on X. He said, "Beating Tennessee does nothing for us. We play in the hardest conference in college football, and we have 9 conference games a year. We don't need a Tennessee W to accomplish what we need to accomplish. Go Big Red," quote unquote. Interesting thought. Interesting thought. If you missed everything we said about Nebraska and canceling this home and home with Tennessee, I thought we had some interesting angles on it. It was on yesterday's podcast. We're going to go check it out for a second listen as soon as you're done here today. Now, on to hoops. Following Purdue men's basketball team's loss to Indiana on Sunday, Boilermaker coach Matt Painter had a lot to say in his post-game interview, in which his team lost a 12-point lead at the half and only scored 21 points the rest of the way in the second half. Remarkable. Purdue's one of the best offenses in the country. Their top 10 offense, easily. And they could not get anything going in the paint against the Hoosiers. And Painter, one of the best coaches out there, he couldn't believe his team's lack of concentration in that particular environment as well. I know it's loud at Assembly Hall and it's crazy, but He's got numerous players that have played hundreds of college basketball games, including a Final Four last year. So nothing should faze this team, but they just did not play well, and he was very disappointed in them. But he also talked about the coaching situation at Indiana, as Mike Woodson will be stepping down after this season. First of all, he says he always wants to beat Woodson, wants to beat Indiana, wants to beat everybody. By the way, in the 4 years that Woodson's been a head coach, they split their 8 games, 4-4. This is at a time when Purdue's been playing some of the best basketball in school history. And anyway, so good job by Mike Woodson for splitting the series at 4-4 before he heads on out. And Painter went on to, he was critical of Indiana fans. Should be careful. But he says, look, there's a faction of rabid IU fans. And you talk about the extreme ones on social media and Twitter. And those are the ones that praise you when you win, but then they just shred you apart when you lose. He's not wrong. I saw a lot of this myself. And I always felt bad because I feel like Indiana owes Woodson a nice send-off. He's a former player there. Did a lot for that school. But he has received a lot of negative attention, social media and all that kind of stuff. But Painter says that some people in all fan bases just need to chill out. He says the real fans are the ones that support you win or lose. I also heard the question when a reporter asked the question, and I believe it was his intent to get a different kind of response, grab a bit of a headline and go another direction, but Matt Painter didn't bite because he's a smart guy. I asked him about the job opening in Indiana. You're asking the Purdue coach about the upcoming job opening at Indiana. And I know that this writer or reporter wanted to see if we could get a headline about Painter, if he would ever even consider leaving Purdue to go to Indiana. I mean, these are fierce rivals back and forth. So let me just say right now, he would not do that. He would not. Some people have speculated about it. Look, I know Scott Dolson, the athletic director at Indiana, has a great deal of respect for Matt Painter. And I know Matt Painter has respect for Dolson. It's mutual, no doubt about it. He's not leaving the Purdue job to take the Indiana job. I don't care how much money they would throw at him. But the background for the question is interesting because Painter, he's from Indiana, and he was an Indiana Hoosier fan growing up as a boy in Indiana. His brother went to Indiana. Painter wanted to play at Indiana. He wanted to play for legendary basketball coach Bob Knight. However, when it came time for recruitment, Knight wanted Painter to do an extra year after high school of prep school first, just to buy him another year, kind of an unofficial red shirt, get bigger, stronger, older, if you will. And Painter didn't want to do that at the time. He also realized that had he done that and then come to Indiana, it probably wouldn't have been able to crack that lineup. That's what he said. So instead, he went to go play for the other legendary coach in the state at the time, Gene Cady, at Purdue. And then later it worked out because he joined Cady's staff as an assistant. And then when Cady retired, everybody was impressed with Matt Painter, as they should have been. And he just took over. It was a seamless transition. I mean, think about all the coaches Indiana has had since Bob Knight left. I mean, they're still trying to figure it out. When Gene Cady left, Matt Painter took over, and he's still there. Smooth. Been very successful. So I've done an outstanding job out there in West Lafayette, and he can and probably will coach there for the rest of his career. I mean, you never hear a peep about other schools trying to lure him away or whatever. But he's just not going anywhere. He's just not. He could. I mean, if he ever left Purdue, he'd get a job in a heartbeat. So, but no, Painter is not going to be taking over the Indiana coaching job next year. It's just not going to happen. Speaking of basketball, men's basketball, Tuesday night, tonight, we got Northwestern at Minnesota. That's a 7:00 game. First game of a Peacock doubleheader, if I'm streaming. And then Washington is at number 11, Wisconsin. That's a 9:00 game Eastern, 6:00 Pacific on Peacock. And Wisconsin is reeling a little bit from their overtime loss to Oregon over the weekend. Oregon hit an amazing 3 to send it into overtime, and then Wisconsin lost the game in overtime. Also, we have Iowa at Illinois. That is at 9:00 Eastern, 6:00 Pacific. FS1. Illinois, man, injuries and illness, and then an embarrassment. They lost by 43 points to Duke this weekend at Madison Square Garden. That was not good. In fact, Illinois was 0 for its first 17 3-pointers from beyond the arc, 2 for 26 in the game. It was bad. I mean, Cooper Flagg, the star player for Duke, only scored 16 points. It's not like he went off for 55 points or something like that. But, Illinois needs to bounce back from that. Meanwhile, in the women, no women's action tonight, but tomorrow, Wednesday, 22nd ranked Michigan State at number 8, Ohio State. Iowa is at Michigan, number 3, UCLA at Wisconsin, and Washington is at Minnesota. One other note, golf fans, I'm going to tie this into the Big Ten here. If you watched the Masters last year, former Ohio State golfer Neil Shipley got to hang out in Butler's cabin as the top amateur at the Masters. And now he's headed for more attention because he will appear on the Netflix golf series Full Swing. The series follows pro golfers on the PGA Tour and will feature Shipley's time at the Masters, in which he got to golf 2 rounds with Tiger Woods. Pretty cool. All right. You know what's next? We got our Tuesday tweets. That's what's coming up next. So don't forget, you can always send us a tweet at X, at Talk Big Ten. Something good, we'll put it on the Tuesday show. That's all coming up right here in 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. All right, if you're new to our podcast, we have features at the end each and every day, something different every day. Every Monday, we do our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. Every Tuesday, we do Tuesday tweets. And then Wednesdays are our power rankings. And Thursdays, we look at Big Ten classics. And Friday, we make our picks for games that are on the slate. So I'm going to go full screen. If you're audio only here, I'm going to describe as best I can what is on the screen on these tweets that we put out here. This one right off the top is from Swanky Wolverine, big Michigan fan here. And talk about Dusty May. Michigan, it's a picture of Dusty May. Michigan men's basketball head coach is one of 15 coaches named to the 2025 Naismith Coach of the Year list. Also got a contract extension. He only been there for 10 months. I think Indiana was inquiring about his services. He's an Indiana grad. Took an 8-win team from Juwan Howard and got a 20-plus win going into the tournament this year. And Swanky suggests that perhaps Dusty May should be the Coach of the Year right now, give him the award right now. All right, here is from at Hoosier Nate, and it split screen on the left. It's got Kurt Signetti looking very stern into the camera, and the score in the final minutes of the Purdue football game where Indiana won 66-0. And then it shows Indiana basketball on the right with their win over Purdue 73-58. So a blowout win in football, a blowout win in basketball. When they did play in Mackey a couple of weeks ago, it was a close game. Indiana had a lead with about a minute to go, but Purdue won that one. But I would say overall a successful year for the Hoosiers against their arch rival Purdue in football and basketball. Here is a picture of Mike Woodson celebrating with his kids on the floor after they beat Purdue. This is from at Indiana basketball. Bring it in. This is the huddle. Into the little video and all high fives and good times there. Here's from at NFL rumors about the NFL draft. Hashtag the Raiders have done a lot of homework on Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Hashtag Raider Nation. It's a picture of Will Howard against Oregon with the banner NFL rumors. Well, do the math there, right? They need quarterbacks. They need a starter and a backup. Maybe Will Howard could be a starter. And they haven't had a good quarterback there. And Chip Kelly's there now. Who knows Will Howard better than Chip Kelly, the former offensive coordinator with the Ohio State Buckeyes, huh? Keep an eye on that situation on draft day. Here's from at Country Michigan State, picture of Tom Izzo. The longest active NCAA tournament appearance streaks currently, according to the NCAA. Michigan State, 26 straight bids. Gonzaga, 25. And then a big drop-off to Purdue, the third most longest streak, 9. Wow. That is an impressive run for the Spartans. Here is from Jeff Rabjohns. This is a black and white picture of Bob Knight throwing the chair. That was against Purdue. That was 40 years ago Sunday, the anniversary of the day that Indiana and Purdue were playing each other. And if you missed it, Mike Woodson he grabbed this chair. They still have it. He sat on this chair during the game in memory of his old ball coach. 40 years ago this past weekend, the throwing of the chair. And here's another shot of Mike Woodson in the huddle from at Ben Stevens, also acknowledging there's a picture of him actually sitting on the chair. big fat cushion underneath it because those old plastic chairs from the 1980s was a long time ago. Chairs are much better now. It also says in 49 other states, it's just basketball. Let's see what else we have here. Some football at PFF College, the highest graded Big Ten offensive tackle. And it was Jennings Dunker, 87.3. Also, here is Good Morning Notre Dame fans from at Buckeye Brutus. It is a collage of Ohio State football and some Notre Dame mix in there. A reminder that Ohio State beat Notre Dame for the national championship. Here is another one from at Michigan State Content. Back to start your day. Picture of Tom Izzo looking up at a scoreboard here. This is, I believe, ahead of the Michigan game. Tom Izzo. Oh, okay. Tom Izzo. No Tom Izzo team has ever lost at home versus Michigan after beating Michigan in Ann Arbor in the first of the two meetings. All right. Well, they won at Ann Arbor on Friday. They will meet again March 9th at Michigan State. History will tell you Michigan State will win this game. But Michigan's good, so we'll see. This is, we had a golf story for you a minute ago. When we talk about Neil Shipley from Ohio State, well, here's Illinois alum from at Barstool, Illinois. Brian Campbell gets the win of the Mexico Open PGA. Took home over $1 million. Good job. I believe that was his first PGA win of his career. This is from at Cole Adams. I could have picked this from a number of people. This is from Sunday's Ohio State at UCLA game. Bill Raftery doing the color analyst. Everybody wearing the tie-dye shirts. They honored the late Bill Walton at the UCLA game and saying that this is one of the greatest moments of the college basketball season. Everybody's wearing tie-dyes out there at that game. And that will do it for our Tuesday tweets. What'd you think? Send me one at X at Talk Big Ten. Would love to hear from you. Many ways for you to interact with us. Not only X or Twitter at Talk Big Ten. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. You can see that on the scroll if you're watching on video. All of our podcasts there. Go back, check out a second listen. Buy yourself some merchandise for your favorite school in the Big Ten and show some school spirit. And if nothing else, subscribe for free. Hit the subscribe button, please, and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app and to get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Tell your friends about us. I know you have Big Ten friends and family members that may not know we're out here every day. This is the only podcast where you get Big Ten news, Big Ten breaking news, analysis of that news, and opinion, all under one umbrella right here, Locked On Big Ten. So thanks for checking us out. Also want to invite you for a second or third listen with our friends at Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton do a great job on the hoops. Don't have to wait for March for all the madness. And you can be the most informed college basketball fan right now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. That'll do it for us. Lots of football to talk about, more conference realignment, more playoff expansion talk coming in this week, and the latest on hoops. It's all right here on under one umbrella. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll check you out next time.